Shalom Akayams. Shalom Akayams. Shalom to the brothers and sisters out there. First, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah, Kodash, Tuwada, Amen. Shalom and double honors to the elders of GMS, Elder Gabar, Elder Rakah, Elder Ramlam, Elder Tahar, and all the camps on the highways and byways bringing out the word in truth and spirit and sincerity. Shalom Akayams. 1 minute. Okay. I want to talk about this painting here that's been sold to some private buyer. It was meant to go on auction at I think it was Sotheby's yesterday, one of those auction houses, and some private buyer called in to buy it. Okay, now this is meant to be a painting of Judith and Holofernes. All right, Holofernes was a captain in the Neo-Babylonian Assyrian army under Nebuchadnezzar II. He was the chief of his army, Holofernes, right? Judith was an Israelite from the tribe of Simeon, right? She was a Simeonite. She was an Israelite from the tribe of Simeon, who today we would call Dominicans, right? Simeon. That's what she came from, that tribe there. Now, this painting was brought by an anonymous buyer yesterday. He stopped it from going on auction, so he snapped it up for £170 million. It was a painting by some man called Caravaggio. So I want to show you how hard-coded, how prevalent this white supremacist idea of the people of the Bible being Caucasians. All right, this painting is nothing more than hardcore white supremacists that was done during the Renaissance. The Renaissance means the renewing, the rebirth. And the reason why I'm focusing on this painting, because it came to light. Someone had it in their attic for years and pulled it out, and it was being tested for over the last 3 or 4 years. And they said it's meant to be of this great artist who they call Caravaggio, who painted these paintings during the Renaissance time, right? During the artist time. So they've given you this painting of all these Caucasians in there, as you can see. All right, of all these Caucasians in the painting. Now this is meant to be Holofernes, the captain, the chief of the captain of Nebuchadnezzar's the second army. That's of the Neo-Babylonian Assyrian Empire. All right, Nebuchadnezzar the second. So this is, he ruled around from 605 BC to around 560 BC. All right, around that time. This was the king of Babylon back then, of the Neo-Babylon Empire, that took the Israelites into captivity during the times of Jeremiah, Daniel, Isaiah, Ezekiel. They all spoke about this, yeah? Ezra's, Nehemiah, and so forth, all right? This is when this is meant to have been happened. So this is meant to be Judith, right? This is meant to be Judith, an Israelite. This is meant to be Judith from the tribe of Simeon. This is meant to be her handmaid here. And this next to her, this man here who she's beheading in his chambers, is meant to be Holofernes, all right? The chief captain of the Babylonians. Now, we know the Babylonians then were a nation of black people, right? The Chaldeans and the Babylonians and the Assyrians were a nation of people of color. They were not Caucasian white people. We know that ancient Israelites and the Israelites today are a nation of people of color, all right? We know that for a fact, that they were a nation of people of color. I did a video about this earlier today, talking about the awakening of the Israelites, that we are a nation of people of brown, different shades of brown, from dark brown to light brown, right? But I'm going to prove this to you. I'm going to ultimately prove this to you, right? So this is what they said yesterday. Just going to quickly read it. It says a painting described as a lost Caravaggio masterpiece has been brought to 2 days before it was due to go under the hammer in France. The painting, which was found under an old mattress in the attic of a house in the French city of Toulouse, was snapped up by a foreign buyer. The auction house is selling it and said on Tuesday, an expert, Eric Turquin, who authenticated the painting, said it was worth between 100 million and 150 million euros. You know what these Edomites are like. anything that they paint to do the Renaissance, they like to give it these exuberant prices and say they're worth hundreds of millions or tens of millions. This is what they do with their shit. All of their art, all of their so-called art is worth hundreds of millions. But this is what they do. This is what this white supremacist idea of art does. All right. It says, although several Italian specialists have doubts about the canvas, it says, however, Tarquin's France leading authority on old masterpiece paintings had staked his reputation on the work being Caravaggio's lost Judith, Caravaggio's lost Judith and Holofernes painting, right? The painting depicting a grisly biblical scene of the beautiful, listen to what it says, the beautiful Jewish widow Judith beheading a sleeping Assyrian general, all right, was to be auctioned in Toulouse on Thursday. Now, can you see any beauty in this? Look at this Caucasian woman. Can you see how ugly this Edomite woman is? Her maid is even uglier. Right? Now, Judith, according to the scriptures, was one of the most beautifulest women that lived in Israel, especially during that time, during the times of the Babylonians then, all right? And the Assyrians then, when they conquered the southern kingdom and took them into captivity, right? Which was like King Zedekiah was the king at the time, took them into captivity. She was one of the most beautifulest women in Israel at the time. She was like a Sarah-like. If you remember when Sarah and Abraham went down to into Egypt, and Abraham said to Sarah, say that you're my sister, otherwise they might want to kill you because of your beauty, all right? Judith was of that same ilk. She was one of the most beautifulest women in Israel during that time, Judith, right? So we're going to show you in scripture who Judith was, all right? So we're going to go into the Apocrypha. Judith has her own book in there, the book of Judith in the Apocrypha, and we're going to start in chapter 8, all right? We're going to pull out some scriptures. So we're going to start in chapter 8. We're going to read a few verses in here. Then we're going to go to chapter 9 and read a few verses. So we're going to start at the top to get you. I'm going to give you a little background just so you understand who we're dealing with, right? It was the Jews were the Israelites were afraid of Holofernes, right? And they had fortified all of their lands and everything from the Assyrians, right? From the Neo-Babylonian Assyrian army, right? They was in a place called Bethulia, right? Right. All of Israel were at that time were fasting and praying because they were so terrified of this Babylonian Neo-Assyrian army, all right? Holofernes was a chief captain in Nebuchadnezzar II's army. That's who he was, right? Holofernes, right? So we're going to start here. And yeah, Judith, the book of Judith, chapter 8, verse 1. And we're going to read it so you can see it, all right? We're not going to hide anything, right? We're going to read a few verses in this one here. It says, now at that time, Judith heard thereof. One second, people, sorry. Right, 1 second, people, sorry. Right, let's hit it. So it says here, it says, now at that time, Judith heard thereof, which was the daughter of Moriah, the son of Ox, the son of Joseph, the son of Ozel, the son of Elisha, the son of Anias, the son of Gideon, the son of Raphaim, the son of Attico, the son of Elu, the son of Eliab, the son of Nathaniel, the son of Samuel, the son of Salasidai, the son of Israel. All right, and Manasses was her husband, of her tribe and kindred. So Manasses was a Simeonite as well. He was from the tribe of Simeon as well, right? Who died in the barley harvest, right? So, for as he stood overseeing them that bound the sheaves in the field, the heat came upon his head, and he fell on his bed and died in the city of Bethulia. And they buried him with his fathers in the field between Dothaim and Balamo. So Judith was a widow in her house 3 years and 4 months, all right? And this is a book that our Israelite women could read and take some guidance, some strength, right? And some spiritual understanding of what type of women you are meant to be, right? Especially when you're coming into this truth, all right? It says, and she made her tent upon the top of her house and put on sackcloth upon her lions and wear her widow's apparel, because she was a widow now, her husband had died. So she's been a widow now for 3 years and 4 months, right? It says, and she fasted all the days of her widowhood, save the even of the Sabbath and the evening and the new moons and the new moons and the feasts and the solemn days in the house of Israel. All right. And it says, she was also of a godly countenance and very beautiful to behold. All right. This is Judith we're talking about. And her husband Manasses had left her gold and silver and manservants and maidservants and cattle and lands, and she remained upon them. All right. So she was a wealthy woman as well. She was left many substance from her husband after he died. All right. And it says, and there was none that gave her an ill word, as she feared the Most High greatly. And she was a righteous woman as well. Right. She was a righteous woman living with her mind intact, and she feared the Most High, following, which means that she was following the laws, commandments, and statutes, right, during the times of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, this is who we're talking about. So now we're going to jump to, all right. So now at this point here, Judith has become a widow, all right, and she's known to be this beautiful woman, but she's wearing sackcloth, which means she's wearing clothes of mourning, nothing of any spectacular looking clothes. They were clothes that they wore that during those times when they were mourning. She was a widow, so she always wore clothes of sackcloth during those times, Judith, right? So it says here, so we're going to go to chapter 9. I wrote down a few scriptures there, chapter 9. So we're still in the book of Judith, now we're in chapter 9, and we're going to start at verse 2, all right? It says, O Lord of my father Simeon, right, to whom thou gavest a sword to take vengeance of the strangers. This is how we know that she's from the tribe of Simeon, because she's saying a prayer, right, talking about who her forefather was, Simeon, from the tribe of Simeon, right? So it says, O Lord power, O Lord most high of my father Simeon. That's the tribe of Simeon, today who we call the Dominicans, all right? To whom thou gavest a sword to take vengeance of the strangers, who loosened the girdle of a maid to defile her, and discovered the thigh to her shame, and polluted her virginity to her reproach. For thou sayest, it shall not be so, and yet they did so. Wherefore thou gavest their rulers to be slain, so that they dyed their bed in blood, being deceived, and smothered the servants with their laws, and the lords upon their throne. So this was showing you, identifying that Judith was from the tribe of Simeon, because what she's referring to there goes back to, that goes to the time of, let me just quickly put it out here. She's referring to Genesis chapter 34, when Simeon and his brother, because their sister was raped by the Canaanite, and they took vengeance on them. So if you was to go to Genesis chapter 34, just quickly pull it out here, it tells you of that time. Genesis chapter 34. This is how we know she's from the tribe of Simeon. Chapter 34 verse 2. And it says here, and when Shechem, the son of Hamor, and the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, we start at the top, right? It's talking about Dinah, Jacob's daughter, all right? And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. So she was raped by Shechem, of the son of Hamor. He was a prince, all right? But the two brothers that would not let this go was Simeon. I'm trying to think who the other brother was. Was it Simeon and Simeon and Levi? That's right. So it was Simeon and Levi that took vengeance on them. All right, that took vengeance on them and killed them for what they did, and everyone that was in the town that lived amongst them as well, their brothers and so forth, because he blamed them because he wanted to marry Dinah. So it tells you here, if you jump down to verse 30, right? So Genesis chapter 34 verse 30 says, and Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I being a few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. So Jacob their father was saying, because they took vengeance against the men that raped their sister, and they killed them, and they killed those that dwelt amongst them, that these men now, because they were more in number than Jacob and his sons and the rest of their family, that he felt that they were threatened. This is how we know that she's talking about here, that she's a Simeonite. She says, O Lord God of my father Simeon, to whom thou gavest a sword to take vengeance of the strangers. She's talking about Shechem here in Genesis chapter 34. So you can read that chapter, Genesis chapter 34, and it will give you an understanding of what she's speaking of, right? So that's how we know that she's from the tribe of Simeon. So we know that today we would call them Dominicans, all right? I just wanted to get you that little bit of understanding before we went any further. So now we're going to go to chapter 10. Judith chapter 10. These people are the devil themselves, you know. Judith chapter 10, and we'll start at the very top. It says, now after that she had ceased to cry unto the Most High of Israel, and had made an end of all these words, she rose where she had fallen down, and called her maid, and went down into the house in which she had bathed in the Sabbath day. So what this is talking about, she had done a prayer to the Most High. I'll quickly show you this. This is in chapter 9. Judith had done a prayer to the Most High here. Where is it? Here. It says, I pray thee, O Most High of my Father, O Most High of the inheritance of Israel, Lord of the heavens and earth, creator of the waters, king of every creature, hear thou my prayer. This is Judith praying to the Most High to deliver the Israelites from the Neo-Babylonian Assyrian army, all right? Who was being led by the chief of their armies was Holofernes, all right? Who that picture is based on, all right? It says, and make my speech and deceit to be their wound and stripe, who have proposed cruel things against thy covenant, which are the children of Israel, and thy hallowed house, and against the top of Zion, and against the house of the possession of thy children, and make every nation and tribe to acknowledge that thou art the power, the Most High of all power and might, and that there is none other that protected the people of Israel but thou. And this is Judith who's made this prayer to the Most High to deliver the Israelites from the Assyrian, right, from the Babylonian Assyrian army, all right? So let's go to chapter 10. So we're going to start at the top in chapter 10 here. So it says, now after that she had ceased to cry unto the Most High of Israel, and had made an end of all these words, which were her prayers that we just read a little while ago in chapter 9. She rose where she had fallen down, and called her maid, and went down into the house in which she abode in the Sabbath days and in the feast days. And she pulled off the sackcloth which she had on, and put off the garments of her widowhood. So remember, we read about the sackcloths that Judith was wearing. I'm even going to pull up another tab here, man, because we're going to go back and forth in here. I need to show you that how these devils operate. I tell you, Esau, this racist, this white supremacist idea of the Bible, right, is just beyond me. Absolutely beyond me, all right? So, it says here, and she pulled off the sackcloth which she had on, right, which we read about here in chapter 8, right, when it spoke of now, where was it, in chapter 8, verses, chapter 8, verses 1 to 8, when it says, and she, where is it here? Here. And she fasted all days of her widowhood, in the evening and the Sabbath and so forth, when it speaks about her. And it says, look, it says she made a tent upon the top of her house, and she put on the sackcloth upon her lions, and wear her widow's apparel. So this is what it's speaking of here. So it says here, she rose and she had fallen down. So in the book of Judith, chapter 10, verse 2, right? She rose and she had fallen down, right? And called her maid, and went down into the house in which she abode in the Sabbath days and in the feast days, and pulled off the sackcloth which she had on, and put off the garments of her widowhood. So now she's taken off all of her widowhood and her mourning garments, right? And washed her body all over with water, and anointed herself with precious ointment, right? And braided the hair of her head, and put on a tire upon it, right? And put on her garments. A tire is like a wrap, what our women wear when they wrap their head, right? And put on the garments of gladness wherewith she was glad during the life of Manasses, her husband, right? So these so-called Caucasians do not braid their hair. This is something that they do now because they see all of our women from all the different tribes that braid their hair. They see that and they mimic it now. But these so-called Edomites, these so-called white people, never ever braided their hair back in biblical times or any other time during the Renaissance and so forth, right? This is why when these devils painted this picture of Judith, look at this. This is Judith. Look at this ugly woman. These are other pictures of her. These are other paintings of her, all right, that were done during the Renaissance. This was painted 1614 to 1618 during the height of the Renaissance, right? This is meant to be Judith. That's her maid. This is meant to be Holofernes, right? These devils don't braid their hair, all right? This is another depiction of Judith, painted in 1530, all right? They don't braid their hair. These devils, this is another picture of Judith, so-called Judith, Caucasian white woman, right? With the head of Holofernes, the captain of Nebuchadnezzar's army, all right? The chief captain, and that's meant to be her maid. This was painted in 1613. Judith with the head of Holofernes. This was all done during the Renaissance period, during the changing of, remember the word Renaissance means rebirth, renew, where they was changing everything from black to white, these devils. This is what they do, right? This is what they did all through the Renaissance. They changed all of the images of our Lord and Savior, the people of the Bible, the biblical people, and all of the people that lived during those times. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Philistines, the Assyrians, they changed it from so-called black people to so-called white people. They did that all during the Renaissance. Can you see any braided hair here? What beauty can you see in this? Judith was this strikingly beautiful woman that as you saw her, it was like a shining light. Right? These are all different pictures that they've done during the Renaissance. This is 1928. This is more recent. Right? This is what they did. This is during the Renaissance period again. 1457, 1470. This is Judith leaving with her maid. Look at this ugly cow. Leaving with her maid with the head of Holofernes. Right? That's the maid. And this is meant to be Judith. Can you imagine men looking in awe of this? What they're trying to depict as Judith of the Bible. Judith was a Dominican. She looked something like this. She was a Dominican. She had beauty she had such beauty, right? You could just imagine, right? We are the only people, so-called black people, are the only people on this planet Earth that braid their hair. This is something new that these Caucasians do. This is what we do. We braid our hair. This is what Judith would have looked like, something like this. But she would have had a tire on her head, which means a wrap. She would have had a braided hair with a wrap on her head. This is what Judith would have looked like. One of these women that you see here. She was a Dominican. These are Dominicans. Here's more Dominicans. Judith would have looked something like this with a wrap on her head. This is what you call braided hair, plaits. White people don't braid their hair. This is something they do now in the 21st century. They never did this in the 15th century, the 16th century, the 17th century. They never did this in biblical times. They definitely didn't do this during around 600 BC, right? And 500 BC, when this all took place. This meeting between Judith and Holofernes happened around 598 BC. She was a black woman, a so-called black woman of a beauty that was beyond comparison. White people do not braid their hair. What did they say? This is what the scripture says. It says, sorry, go back here. It says here, and she pulled up the sackcloth, right, which is all the clothes of mourning, which she had on her, and put up the garments of widowhood, and washed her body all over with water, all right, and anointed herself with precious ointment, and braided the hair of her head. She braided the hair of her head. You see this? That's what she did. She braided the hair of her head and then she put a wrap on it. That's what Judith did. Judith did not look like this devil hair. Or this devil hair, this £170 million painting that they got here saying this is Judith. You see how ugly this so-called Caucasian woman is? Which part of her hair is braided? I don't know who's uglier, her or the maid. But this is what they do. This is what they did during the Renaissance. This picture was painted, I think, around 1528 or 1628. It was either the 16th century or the 15th century, during the height of Renaissance, the rebirth of Europe. They don't braid their hair. They do not braid their hair. This is what they gave you. So this was Judith. 1470 this picture was painted. On her way back to Bethulia, back to Israel. Are you kidding me? These devils are something else, boy. But this is what they do. We, our people, have always braided our heads. So-called black people, even Hamites, used to braid their hair. It was a thing that so-called black people did, people of color did. It was standard. Edomites that was living in Mount Seir weren't braiding their hair. They have hair like goat. We have hair like wool. But this is how they lie, because they don't expect you. They listen, when this thing came up on the news yesterday, they're not expecting anyone to be looking into this. Anybody of color to be looking into this in detail, to looking into the book of Judith, that knew that this, because the minute they showed this, I already knew the story about the book of Judith. I thought to myself, these devils, £170 million they sold this demonic picture for, saying this is Judith. It says here, and she put on her garments wherewith she was clad during the life of Manasses her husband. She took her sandals upon her feet and put about her bracelets and her chains, just like what our women do today. Wearing their gold bracelets and their gold chains. This ain't shit that white women do. They're not wearing bracelets and chains. It's the same thing what you see Judith doing then. Our women still do today. Our women are still putting on their bracelets and their chains when they're going out and prettying up themselves. And are you kidding me? When they're looking to impress people. This is what our women do. White women don't do this shit. You don't see white women going out with gold chains and bracelets and, gold bracelets. They don't do that shit. This is what our women do. It's like she's got on her chain around, a little gold chain around her neck. This is what our women do. They fix up themselves oh man. But the problem is that our women are so lost. So absolutely, man. Shalom to witness. Judith is a great read. And this is why I said at the beginning, I would implore our women, our Israelite women from the 12 tribes, from the Mexicans to the African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, West Indian, Caribbeans, all right, Haitians, Dominicans, our women from our 12 tribes of Israel. Judith is a great and powerful and humble book to read. If you're coming into this truth or if you're in this truth, truly is. This is what our women do. These Edomites don't do this. Our women do all these things, right? White people do not. This is a 21st century phenomenon for white people to be braided their hair. This is something they've been doing for the last 20, 25 years. Probably the first white woman I ever saw to braid her hair was Bo Derek in that movie 10 that came out in the 1980s. Are you kidding me? This is not what they do. This is our thing. So when you see them pushing this and saying this is Judith, this is her maid, and this is meant to be Holofernes, everything about this image is based on white supremacists. This painting was painted during the Renaissance. Same thing that they did here. It's another painting from the Renaissance that's meant to be representing Judith and her maid. This painting was done in 1470. This could never be Judith. Look how ugly this Caucasian Edomite woman is. Are you kidding me? Judith was so beautiful. Men were mesmerized when she walked past them. That's what I said. Our women today have lost that edge that they had. Truly. So it says there, and she took her sandals and put upon her feet and put about her bracelets and her chains and her rings. Come on, man, that's a Jake. That's a Jake female. That's a Latino. Are you kidding me? When you see our women getting dressed up, the Mexican women, right? The Latinos, Puerto Ricans, the African Americans, and the West Indian women. This is what they do. Oh Lord, I tell you, this Bible is absolutely, it is, I tell you, I'm just lost for words sometimes when I read the scriptures. It is truly, truly inspirational spiritually, letting you know who it's talking about. And her earrings and all her ornaments, and she decked herself bravely to allure the eyes of all the men that should see her. Come on, man. This is what our women do all day, every day. They pretty up themselves in such a way to lower all of the men. These are Dominicans, right? This is what they're doing. They're putting on their chains, their earrings, right? Their braids, everything to lure the men. That's what they do. This is what our women do. Their nails, they spend all their time fixing themselves up. This is what our women do. Whether it's the fancy earrings and that, this is not what white women do. Edomites don't do this. So even today in the spirit, and even though so many of our women are wicked, and I can say this, so many of our Israelite women are wicked, but even today in the spirit, they are doing the exact same things that Judith did to allure the Assyrian, Neo-Babylon Assyrian men who she was going to supplant. Are you kidding me? It is, oh man. Let's go back anyway. So it's verse 5 says, then she gave her maid a bottle of wine and a cruse of oil, and filled a bag with parched corn and lumps of figs and with fine bread. So she folded all these things together and laid upon her. Thus they went forth to the gate of the city of Bethulia, and found standing there was Ozias, the ancient of the city, and Chabris and Charmis. So she was now getting ready to leave Israel to make her way to the Babylonian Assyrian camp, where Holofernes was the chief captain, was the general of the army. She was getting ready now to make her way down into that camp, right? That's what Judith was doing. So we're going to jump down a couple verses there to verse 11, all right, when she enters the camp. It says, thus they went straight forth in the valley, and the first watch of the Assyrians met her, right? So the first watch of the Assyrian guard, right, that belonged to Holofernes, met her, met Judith and her maid. And they took her and asked her, of what people art thou? And whence comest thou? And whither goest thou? So they want to know who she is. Where's she coming from and where is she going? And she said, I am a woman of the Hebrews. She's from the tribe of Simeon, but she made them know she's a Hebrew Israelite. And am fled from them. So she was now supplanting the Syrians by saying that she was fleeing Israel, because they was under siege by the Babylonian Assyrian army. All right? And remember, we're talking about Nebuchadnezzar II, who sent Holofernes, his general of his army, to besiege all of those cities that didn't help him when he went to war with the Egyptians. All right? I think Pecan was the Egyptian king at the time. They refused to join him because they was hoping that that Nebuchadnezzar was going to lose. Right? So he sent his army to go and reprimand all of those nations that refused to join him in battle. All right? That's why they ended up at Israel. Israel was the last place that they ended up at. For they shall be given to you to be consumed, she's saying to him, right? So she's supplanting the Assyrians now by making up a story saying that she was fleeing Israel, but really she was going to do exactly what you see here in the painting, all right? So it says here, and I am coming before Holofernes, the chief captain of your army, to declare words of truth, and I will show him a way whereby he shall go and win all the hill country without losing the body or life of any one of his men. So she's saying, look, she's going to show him a way into Israel, into Bethulia, where she can get in there through a back door, where the Assyrians can get in there through a back door, the Neo-Babylonian Assyrians, and take the city. All right? So now when the men heard her words and beheld her countenance, they wondered greatly at her beauty and said unto her, so they looked at her and they thought, damn, this bitch is beautiful, right? So they beheld her countenance and they wondered greatly at her beauty and said unto her, thou hast saved thy life in that thou hast hasted to come down to the presence of our Lord. Now therefore come to this tent, and some of us will conduct thee until they have delivered thee to his hands. All right? So once again, can you imagine this Edomite coming down to those Assyrians, right? And remember, those Assyrians, those Neo-Babylon Chaldeans and Assyrians were a nation of black people as well. Can you imagine this Caucasian, this stale looking, pale skin, leprous as snow, coming down, looking like this, and they're in awe of her? Are you kidding me? She ain't setting no one alight. Everyone's getting back in their tent when they see her. And this is the painting that they sold for 170 million. Can you imagine this ugly thing here? Coming down out of the land of Israel to the Assyrians, to the Neo-Babylonian army with the Assyrians. And they was in awe of her. Are you kidding me? Look how stale this woman looks. What beauty is in this that we're looking at? Now, truly, listen, there are some beautiful Caucasian women out there today, right? I'm not going to lie, all right? But look at this bitch here that they're showing you. Are you kidding me? Don't even go there with their foolishness. Anyway, so we're gonna jump down a few more verses here, right? So I don't want to have to read this whole story to you, right? We're gonna jump down a few more. No, we'll just keep reading from here because I'm only gonna go into verse 23. So it says here, so it said, and when thou standest before him, talking about the captain of the guard, the captain of the army, the general, Holofernes, be not afraid in thy heart, but show unto him according to thy word, and he will entreat thee well. So they're basically saying to her, say exactly what you said to us, that you're coming to show him a back door into Israel, for him to take the city, all right? To take Bethulia and to besiege the rest of Israel. Then they chose out of them 100 men to accompany her and her maid. So they said 100 men. That's how beautiful she was, 100 men, so they're going to accompany her, and they brought her to the tent of Holofernes, right, which is the general of the army that Nebuchadnezzar sent out there to besiege Israel. All right, so 100 men. Can you imagine? They must have been queuing up, fighting to follow her, boy, just to keep looking at her the way she was so beautiful. Then was there a concourse throughout all the camp, right? So there was a concourse throughout all the camp, for her coming was noised among the tents, and they came about her as she stood without the tent of Holofernes, till they told him of her. So everyone was coming out to see this. The word was going through, right? The whole camp of the army saying, damn, when you see this woman come, she is a beauty beyond beauty. So they saw some beautiful queen. I don't know which one to pick, right? But I'm just saying, they saw a queen, a beautiful queen, Simeonite, who today we call the Dominicans, coming down. They were in awe of her. But she had her head wrapped. So they saw this beautiful queen. This beautiful woman, Israelite woman coming down. And they was all in awe of her. All of the Assyrian, the Babylonian Assyrians, them, right? Then was there a concourse. So there was a tumult amongst them, throughout all the camp. For her coming was noised among the tents. Oh, And they came about her as she stood without the tent of Holofernes till they told him of her. And they wondered at her beauty and admired the children of Israel because of her. So when they saw her, they thought, what other women are in that place? If they've got, because what the Assyrians are showing you there, that there's not a single woman in Babylon, in Assyria, that could match her beauty. They're telling you that they have not come across a single of their own women, of the Assyrian, of the Babylonians, or the Chaldeans, right? Of that empire, of that Neo-Babylonian Assyrian empire. They've never seen a woman as beautiful as this woman here, Judith. So they're wondering how many more of them are in Israel. So when they saw that beauty of her, when they saw her coming, and they saw her beauty, they were saying they've never seen nothing like it. I just want you to get an understanding of what we're showing you. They had never seen enough. So they wanted to know how many more. How many more of them were there? How many more? How many more was back there? They've never seen one. They looked and they saw and said, how many more beautiful women of the Hebrew Israelite women are back there in Bethulia, back there behind those barricaded walls, right? That's what they wanted to know. It's as simple as that. So we're going to continue reading. And they wondered at her beauty and admired the children of Israel because of her. You think they're going to look at some stale Caucasian Edomite woman like this and wonder at her beauty? And wonder how many more leprous, pale skin, no melanin in them, right? Stringy hair, goat hair women are back in Israel. If these were the Israelites. Do you really believe a devil like this, an Edomite devil like this, was cutting through the camp, right? Before they took his head off. Looked like this, and they was all in awe of her. I gotta laugh. They're dark, these devils. They really are, these Edomites, you know. No one ain't looking at this. Nobody ain't looking at this, my friend. Let me tell you, not a soul. So, they said here, and they admired the children of Israel because of her. Everyone said to his neighbor, who would despise this people? So they said, who would despise them? Just because of this one woman's beauty, you know. That have among them such women. Let me read this again. Who would despise this people that have among them such women? Surely it is not good that one man of them be left, who being let go might deceive the whole earth. Right? So they're saying, surely it is not good that one man of them be left, who being let go might deceive the whole earth. So they're saying, boy, when they saw her, they wanted to kill every Israelite man so they could take their women. Because that's what it was all about. The men carried the seed. So they figured if they was able to get into that city, because they believed Judith was coming to tell them about a back door into the hill country of Bethulia, into Israel, that they could go in there and kill all the Israelite men and take their women. Because when they saw her, they said, who would despise this people that have among them such women? This is what they're saying to her. So they're looking and thinking, Ma, there are so many of these beautiful queens back there. That's what they're thinking. How many more of these Israelite women, these Dominicans, right, which was Simeon. And remember, you got Judah back there as well. You got Benjamites back there as well, right? But she was from the tribe of Simeon. This is what they were thinking. How many more of these Simeonites were back there, and Benjamites and Judites were back there in Israel, that they wanted to kill all the men to take the women? That's what was on their mind. And they that lay near Holofernes went out, and all the servants that brought her into the tent. Now Holofernes rested upon his bed under a canopy, which was woven with purple and gold and emeralds and precious stone. So they showed him of her, and he came out before his tent with silver lamps going before him. And when Judith was come before him and his servants, they all marveled at the beauty of her countenance. So the head man, Holofernes, the chief general, captain of all of Nebuchadnezzar II's army. He was the general of all of his army, the captain of all of his guards. When he saw her, he marveled at her beauty and her countenance. So do you really believe that this Caucasian woman looking like this, or some Caucasian woman came out looking like this, and he marveled at her, that she was a Caucasian? Are you kidding me? And Holofernes was a so-called black man himself. You think this devil came out, this Edomite, some Edomite came to him, and when he came out of his tent, he marveled at some Edomite woman looking like this? No. It was a Simeonite. Today we know as Dominicans. He saw he saw a babe, right, that blew his mind. He saw a babe and he thought, damn. I could just imagine. I remember she had her head wrapped because she put a tire around her head, which is a wrap, which is what our women wear. Right? That's what he saw. I don't know if they got any pictures of women braids with head wraps. Let's see if they got here. Yeah, there you go. So, something like this. Can you imagine? This is what he's seen come to him, you know, with her head wrap, just like this, because she would have had her head covered when she left the yard. Just so you know, we give this. Let's get this on point now. Should have been just like this. When he saw the beauty of her coming, he blew his mind. He said, and when Judith was come before him and his servants, they all marveled at the beauty of her countenance. Right? And she fell down upon her face and did reverence unto him, and his servants took her up. Right? So she was showing obedience to him because she knew he was the main man. Right? But this is what he saw. He didn't see some devil like this coming out to him. Some Edomite looking like this. Nah, mate. Judith's beauty was beyond comparison, women. Truly, our women need to read this book. Was beyond comparison her beauty. So we're going to quickly finish up on, let's go get one more verse here. We want chapter 13. We're going to quickly finish up chapter 13. And this is how the whole thing ended anyway. We'll start at verse 4 here. So all went forth and none was left in the bedchamber. Now we start at verse 3. Now Judith had commanded her maid to stand without her bedchamber, and to wait for her coming forth, as she did daily. For she said she would go forth to her prayers, and she spake to Bagoas according to the same purpose. So all went forth, and none was left in the bedchamber, neither little nor great. Then Judith, standing by his bed, said in her heart, O Lord Yahweh of all power, look at this present upon the works of mine hands, for an exaltation of Jerusalem. For now is the time to help thine inheritance, and to execute thine enterprises, to the destruction of the enemies which are risen against us. Then she came to the pillar of the bed, which was at Holofernes' head, and took down his falchion from thence, and approached to his bed, and took hold of the hair of his head, and said, Strengthen me, O Lord Yahweh, the power of Israel, this day. And she smote twice upon his neck with all her might, and she took away his head from him, and tumbled his body down from the bed, and pulled down the canopy from the pillars. And anon after she went forth, and gave Holofernes his head to her maid, and she put it in her bag of meat. So they twain went together according to the custom unto prayer. And when they passed the camp, they compassed the valley, and went up to the mountain of Bethsuda, and came to the gates thereof. Right? And that's when she went back into the gates. So then said Judith afar off to the watchman at the gate, Open, open now the gate. The Most High, even our power, is with us, to show his power yet in Jerusalem, and his forces against the enemy, as he has done this day. So that's when they opened the gate to her. So I just want that was the story of Judith. This was the painting that they sold for 170 million. This is what they were saying. This is Judith, which is a complete utter lie, because Judith was a so-called black woman, right? She was from the tribe of Simeon, which today we call the Dominican Republicans. The Dominicans is who we would call them today, the tribe of Simeon, right? She was a so-called black woman. She was not no Caucasian white Edomite that they like to represent them as, with all these paintings that they painted during the times of the Renaissance, right? Where everything they changed from black to white. This is what these white people did. This is what these Edomites did. Everything they did during the Renaissance was all based on white supremacists, right? That's why they can give you these pictures here that were done during the Renaissance, all based on white supremacists. Judith was a beautiful, eye-popping Simeonite, so-called black woman. That's who she was, with her head wrapped, just like how you see here. That's who Judith was. Her head was braided, just like how the scripture said. She braided her hair and fixed up herself before she went on road to go out to the Assyrian camp to go and meet the general Holofernes of Nebuchadnezzar's army. All right? When they had besieged Israel. So that's what I wanted to say, that this is what these Edomites do. And I say once again to the sisters out there, if you've got the Apocrypha, if you don't, I would implore you to buy the Apocrypha. You can buy it as a separate book, the Apocrypha, or you can buy it as part of the King James 1611 Bible, like this one here. This has the Apocrypha in it, right? The King James 1611 has the Apocrypha in it, all right? As you can see. So you can buy it. This comes with the Apocrypha inside it. As you can see, you can get the King James 1611 with the Apocrypha inside it, or you just buy the Apocrypha by itself. And I implore you, to our women, you read the book of Judith. It is a spiritual, uplifting book for our women to show you how beautiful they were, how righteous they were. Because so many of our women are wicked today. And I've got to say that. So many of them are wicked today. Lying down with different men all over the place. Madness. Having babies from different men. It's all madness. You get those that are bleaching their skin and want to be like the Caucasian, European, Edomite woman. It's just madness. Read the book of Judith. It is an inspirational book for us. And for the men. It's a beautiful book, the book of Judith. Truly, let me tell you. But they think that we don't know the Bible when they bring out this shit. When they bring out this shit and try to sell you this bullshit. They think we don't know the Bible. Because this was all over the news yesterday. Right? It was in all different newspapers. It was the Art News, Los Angeles Times. They was all talking about it. CNN was talking about it. This £170 million painting of Judith and Holofernes. Because they don't think that, they don't realize that there are people out there, more so Israelites out there, who know the story of Judith and Holofernes and who she really was. She was an Israelite from the tribe of Simeon. She was not no Edomite, Caucasian, so-called white woman. All right? So on that note, like I say, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakah, Kodash, Tawada, Amen. Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai. And double honors to all the camps on the highways and byways. Shalom to the brothers and sisters, and double honors to the elders of GMS. All right? All praise and glory to the Father and Son. All praise and glory. Shalom, Makayams.